now we have a scanned page, and I've brought it into Photoshop. As you can see in a previous video or another video, my inks are quite large, so I scan them in pieces, and then I assemble them here in Photoshop. I have an A3, I think it's A3, I don't know, 11 by 17 inches, whatever that is, A3 scanner. So here we have the page put together, shablams, good to go. Now, it's got to get colored, right, because it's just black and white, and that's not all that much fun. So, inks. Now, the next stage in coloring is obviously done in Photoshop, but what has to come first is the first stage, I guess, for how I do it is a process called flattening. So basically, you lay down these flat block colors for the specific shapes. And different people do this in different ways. The way that I do it, it looks really nutty at first. So I'm actually, for this particular project, I'm getting somebody else to do it just because it's, what the yeah. Don't show me this message again. Windows. Anyway, so for the flattening process, I'm getting, like I said, somebody else to do it. It's really time consuming, and I got to really keep rolling on this, so I need a little bit of help with that. So I'll maybe she'll do a video showing how she does that for those who are interested. But so the end result of what those flats look like is this. Here's, say, one layer. You can kind of see down here, there are multiple different layers. So, and you might ask, like, why is it this insane paint by number, gaudy looking stuff that's hard on the eyes and looks like psychedelic and like really weird and kooky. And really, it's just so that I can see it. It's so that I can take this and then I can kind of see the coverage and then go in and apply the color to these specific areas. And now you can see the inks are on a top layer, set to multiply. Right? If it was on normal, it would look like this, but it's set to multiply. So inks are on top, multiply, everything underneath there. Each of these layers are set to normal on top of each other. So if I take the red off, you can see the stuff underneath. So yeah, and there's quite a few here. There's like 5 or 6 or 7 different layers of that. So this is basically going to be. This is the flats completed, what they look like. And now what I will do is I will go in and I will lay down the flat color, like the actual color, like in keeping with the hues and the saturations and stuff of the page itself. Color the scene so it looks like something resembling kind of the intended end result. So, but this gives you an idea, just sort of what it looks like with the flats in, with my flats in anyway, or the way that I like to do them and or receive them. So, yeah, so that's it. So you go from inks, and then you go to flats, and then coming up, I will be doing a video on the nitty-gritty of how I actually do the coloring itself and the shading and shadowing and all that kind of stuff, or at least the technique that I'm using for this particular project. There's a million ways to there's a million ways to skin a cat, so everybody has their own way of doing it. So I'm sure there's some people who are like, you're not doing it right, you're supposed to do it like this and the right way to blah 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 blah. But everybody has an opinion. I could really care less. Really, it's about doing whatever works best for you and gives you the best result. And this, I find, gives me the best result. I find this to be the fastest and kind of the most effective way to do things. But ask me in 5 years and I might be doing something completely different. Anyhow, that's it. That's all. All right. stay tuned for the next part coming up. Oh, and by the way, this page itself here is from In Search of Hannibal. This is page 14. So yeah, In Search of Hannibal, this is going to be a double page spread. There's a page here on the right hand side. This is page 14. Page 15 is going to be here. So all these little tiny panels. This is kind of a wacky looking page. There's a lot of panels going on. It's a big war scene, and there's going to be panels stretching across from one page to the next. Technically, what I should be doing with the double page spread like this is coloring both pages at the same time to have a unified thing, but doesn't really matter. It'll be fine. What about like resolution and image size and all that? Because that's actually a pretty important deal. So because the intended result is for print, the resolution has to be quite high. And I'd recommend, even if you're doing a webcomic or something like that, scan your stuff and have your stuff, have your pages at like a really, really high resolution, just in case, you do end up wanting to print something one day. Just because what looks nice on a monitor, just because you have something that's 1500 pixels wide on a monitor, it's going to look like complete shit if you were to print that. It's not enough. It's the quality isn't going to be there, and it might look fine on a monitor, but you might really regret seeing that printed because it's going to be such a high or a low quality. And that goes with everything. I don't know. I mean, different people I've worked with, it's maybe I'm an anomaly, but I always want to work in a ridiculous high resolution. Like if I have a good machine, why not? And in fact, actually, I find that some Photoshop brushes work better when you have a high resolution. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but other people are different. They want to keep it small if it's going to be just something that's going to be passed around digitally. But I don't know. I always like having really, because you can only go one way. Like when it comes to like preserving quality, you can always go down, but you can't really go up. So I figure, why not just keep it at the best quality that you can. So anyway, so comics, print quality or resolution and stuff. Here's the template that I use for this project. This is a template for kind of European comics in the Franco-Belgian format. This is what it looks like. You have 3 different areas. You have a live area, which is this white chunk here. This here is basically where all your main action is going to take place. So keep all your word balloons and all that kind of jazz in here. Don't have any text going into this yellow area, or definitely not into the red area. Like say you have some text bleeding into here, well, that's kind of dumb because like you're gonna have the page fold here and you're not gonna be able to read it because it's gonna like kind of creep into the crevice, the butt crack of the page. So keep your dialogue and important stuff here. Keep your critical stuff here. This yellow area it's just sort of it's a gray area. Basically, it's between sort of that area with the important art, the key art, versus the it's sort of a bit of a buffer to the edge of the page. Usually it would even just be like white or just the gutter space. And now this red trim line, this is cut off. This is what will be trimmed by the printer itself. So this image, this template is that big. It's I'll go in centimeters for all of you metric people. So yeah, it's 23.2 centimeters, and the resolution is 600 dpi. So really high, but that's print. Print is usually 600. You can get away with some stuff if it's a very like large format. If you're printing a banner or something like that, it could probably be like 150 pixels, and that's going to be fine because it's huge, right? But something like high-end print book stuff, it's going to be 600 is kind of the default go-to thing. So that's kind of your target. And also too, then at least you can have a little bit of buffer, but 600 is kind of the go-to resolution for that. So yeah, this is basically, I don't know, 9 by 13. So this is the large format kind of European comic deal that you see over here. And now I will just overlay this on top of the inks that I did. And now I'm breaking all the rules I said about keeping stuff outside of this area because well, this is a big crazy spread. It's a big kind of in-your-face kablooey page. So, however, any dialogue will definitely be kept within this white area. So, being a big splash page, stuff is going to bleed off into the edges and kind of be a little in your face. And now you can see, you get up into these little dudes here. Like this in the red will be lost. So, you know, keep that in mind, but you have to kind of run off the page. And most printers and stuff, they're deadly. If they're any good, they're going to do a good job, and it's very predictable where the cut line will be if you use a template like this. So anyway, that's basically. I should have probably used a page that's a better example, but most of the pages, like they really do follow this sort of unified template. So there you go. That's it for resolution. For what to do. You know, when you're first starting out, little things like that, like what's a resolution, are kind of important. So, yeah, 600. So if you have a comic that's, I forget right now what the normal comic size is for American stuff, 6.75 by 10.25. I'm not sure. Whatever your standard American comic is, you can basically use the same sort of thing, add a little bit for a trim size, for a trim line, and then just remember the resolution is probably going to be 600. And by the way, when you're coloring, inevitably you want to deliver the pages in CMYK color, and when you put in the lettering, you need to be dropping the lettering onto the black channel, which we'll get into later. That's kind of complicated right now. But when you're actually coloring, just to keep yourself sane, you can just color in RGB. You don't need to be using CMYK. That's yeah. Your files, or at least my files, get just retarded huge, and it's way more manageable just to keep them in RGB until you're done coloring, and then convert them to CMYK, and then you shouldn't have to do any tweaks, but you know, then you put the lettering in afterwards. But yeah, that's that. Okay, done and done. Later.